Welcome. Hey, it's me, your buddy Dave from thedarkstuff.com, from the Dark Stuff channel here on YouTube. Starting this brand new series called 5 Bands That I Have Tried My Whole Life to Like, but It Just Wouldn't Take. Number 1, The Grateful Dead. So I don't know if you could see that, the smoke billowing there. I tried to give you the smoky atmosphere that would be appropriate for a video where I'm talking about the Grateful Dead. Again, it was attempting at humor. Don't know if it worked.
Hey, Jerry Garcia, I'm the Grateful Dead.
Friends, I decided to start this new series, and it's only going to be 5 of them. It's going to be a very limited series, and it's the 5 bands that I have tried to like, but just couldn't. Now, this is not a series where I'm going to be bashing bands, okay? I prefer on my channel to promote and talk about music that I do like as opposed to music that I don't like. I don't really get much joy in coming on and talking about how somebody sucks or whatever. It's just, that can be for somebody else. I'm going to talk about stuff I do like. So most of the time when you hear music, people make a pretty instantaneous decision about it. I like this, I don't like this, whatever. Sometimes things can warm up on you over time, but generally, your first impression is one that can last for a very, very long time when it comes to music, and I know that it does for me. But I started thinking about it. There are some bands that I have just tried so hard to like over the years. I want to like. There are things about them that I respect and admire, but every time I try, it just doesn't work. I've come up with 5 of them, and the first one I'm going to talk about this week is the Grateful Dead. Okay, on the screen behind me, as I've searched on YouTube for an especially noodly Grateful Dead show from 1993. I don't know any other details about it, what they're playing. It's irrelevant to this video. There's not a single band in the history of music that I have tried harder to like and have given more chances to than the Grateful Dead. There just isn't. So I can remember my introduction to the Dead, or at least the idea of them, came when I was probably in like 9th grade or so, and I was in a youth group, a Jewish youth group, with most of my friends, and a new guy joined the youth group. He was a couple years older, and his family had moved to Nebraska from Wisconsin. This guy was kind of different. He had a different life experience than we had. He liked different stuff. He had all this knowledge that we didn't have, And in addition to wearing like Grateful Dead shirts and patches and whatnot, that night that we met him, he introduced us to a way through whippets to kill millions of brain cells in a matter of seconds perfectly legally. It's when you take never mind. I'm not going to explain how to do it. That's irresponsible and stupid, and probably most people when they're in 8th or 9th grade figure it out. Moving on. So this particular friend had a big influence over my peer group, and he and I are still friends to this day. But that was the sort of the introduction to the Dead. I didn't know any friends that listened to them. They weren't on the radio around here or anywhere. To my knowledge, they never played in Omaha, or at least not in that era. So I didn't really know too much about them. I remember after, him and I talking one time, seeing the Grateful Dead's video for Touch of Grey on MTV, which I actually think is a decent tune. And him saying, it's all right, but like that's an older song. It's better live. It's the studio versions kind of stink. It's just like, eh. And I sort of thought, I don't know, but I thought it was all right. Okay, but I learned that serious Dead fans think the studio stuff sucks, and it's all about the live stuff. Okay, that's almost unanimous among Dead fans. So let's fast forward a couple years to college. I went to a big state school in the Midwest. I went to the University of Wisconsin at Madison. A lot of people, when they get to college, there is a certain amount of experimentation that you engage in while you're there. Some people experiment with new ideologies and new political philosophies, and then some people experiment with their sexuality. Some people experiment with drugs. Some people experiment with music. Some people experiment with all of it. And some people just like to have that little 4-year experience, and as soon as it's over, they go back to the same life that they had been planning all along. Everybody has a unique experience, but college is for experimentation, right? Like a lot of people, I experimented with drugs and whatnot in college, my college days. Madison was a big, it was known as a very liberal school, and they had a day where marijuana was legal for a day, and this was back in 1990, so it was like, way ahead of the curve or whatever. And asterisk, I don't know if it was actually legal. It was supposedly just unenforced, but whatever. One of the things that you learn in college, or at least back in my day, was that in order to get the good stuff, you had to spend time with hippies.
What kind of hippie are you? What kind of hippie am I, man? I'm a business hippie. I understand the concept of supply and demand.
They seem to always have the good stuff. And hippies listen to the Grateful Dead, okay? So one of the things that I encountered when I started hanging out with all of these hippies was they all sit around smoking and listening to the Dead, okay? And just like with my friend, they didn't play any studio albums. They weren't putting on CDs or records. It was all live tapes, And it's like, oh, bro, you got to hear this version of Franklin's Tower from Philly in '86 or whatever, And it's like they all want to outdo you with like, you got to hear this one. You got to hear this one. You got to hear this one. And I will tell you that I heard hundreds of live tapes. I think almost all eras, okay? I heard 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. It all sounded exactly the same to me. Exactly the same. I couldn't distinguish a song. That clean tone guitar with just the noodling and the long solos, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I just wanted to point that out. I heard a lot of it. But in all that time, I have to say that I just could not get high enough to appreciate the Grateful Dead. That is my statement. It could never happen. So despite hundreds of hours, and if there could have been course credit for it, I would have gotten a bachelor's degree in Grateful Dead live music. It didn't take throughout college. When it wasn't sticking, and people didn't understand why I didn't like it, because Deadheads don't like it when they try and turn you on to something and then all of a sudden you're not turned on. Like it doesn't work. Every other person they try and turn on gets turned on, except for it's not turning me on. Like it's not working. So then it was the fallacy of, you need to see a show, dude. You need to see a Dead show. You need to be there, see a show. Now here's why I didn't take them up on that. Number one, a lot of cases I would agree. Yeah, maybe you're not vibing with the band, go see them live. That's going to do it for you. And I did live in a time when the Grateful Dead was still alive, was still functioning. Jerry Garcia was still alive. They were out there touring. After hearing hundreds of hours of these tapes and going from being like moderately like, it's okay, to like starting to dislike it because it was ticking me off. Like, why is every song the same? Why do I keep hearing this noodling? Like, why is every song 11 minutes? Like, what, and I just thought like that mixed with just the vibe of 50,000 people who are all having the best time of their life, and I'm just like not getting it, so I just decided this is not the type of band that I've already formulated an opinion on to go see live. Now, maybe I missed my opportunity. I don't know. That's what someone's going to put in the comment. Dude, you should have seen a show. Okay, whatever. You're probably going to get blocked if you say that, but maybe not. Maybe I'll engage with you. I don't know. In the late 90s, I got into this TV show called Freaks and Geeks. It was a high school show set in, I think, the late 70s in the Midwest, and it was about these kids growing up during that time, rock and roll kind of kids, and it had Seth Rogen in it and Linda Cardellini. She was so hot back then. James Franco, a bunch of other people, and great show. And there were references to Kiss and Zeppelin and Rush and stuff. And they did one where there were a lot of references to the Grateful Dead. And they were specifically talking about the album American Beauty. And I think, from what I remember about the storyline, was something like one of their teachers gave the kid the album to take home or whatever.
I wish I never heard it, just so I could hear it again for the first time.
So after Freaks and Geeks, I decided to try them again. Give them another experience. I think I listened to a live album or two. I might have tried a studio album, and again, it just didn't take. And I just decided that, I don't think this is working for me. Like, I just don't. Again, I'm trying. This is the third iteration of me trying to like this band, and I'm not liking it. Why can't I just let it go? Well, because I find out all these people who I like and admire are Deadheads, and I'm like, what are they hearing in it? Like Elvis Costello, huge into the Grateful Dead. What? Lee Ranaldo from Sonic Youth. Maybe that's not as much of a stretch, but he's a huge Deadhead. The guys in Jane's Addiction were. Al Franken, he's a comedian, he's not a musician, but he was really into him. And all these other people, just strangely enough, Asterisk here, right-wing commentator Ann Coulter, who looks like a scarecrow, she's into the Grateful Dead. Weird, I don't know. That's not necessarily points in their favor, but I'm just pointing that out. So I started reading some stuff about them, and I learned about their big wall of speakers in the 70s and like these interesting things. Like, there are a lot of things that I've admired about the Dead. I admire their independent spirit, the fact that they didn't really rely on record companies and having hits to build their career. They were one of the biggest touring acts of all time, and they maybe had one top 40 hit, Truckin', in like 1970 or something. So I totally respect that. I respect that they don't play to a set list, that they just get up there and do what they want, which is cool. A lot of bands can't pull that off. I like that they just let people tape their shows. They didn't care. It wasn't like, oh, you're trying to exploit me. Then nobody was. They just traded it. As I said, all those friends that had all those fucking tapes. So there are a lot of things that I thought were really cool about them, but I couldn't get into the Grateful Dead, the Jerry Garcia Band, Rat Dog, any of the subgroups and I heard it all and I didn't like it. So in 2017 there was a documentary called Long Strange Trip or What a Long Strange Trip or whatever, and I watched it. I found it super interesting. Okay, but again, when it came time for the music to come on, I kept having all these people say, oh, well, the best album is this and the best album is that and you got to hear this. And it's like, I did pick up a copy of American Beauty after that whole Freaks and Geeks thing. And I have to say, it's a decent album. Sounds like early 70s, just folky rock. Like, nothing exceptional, but nothing bad. And I don't understand why Dead fans don't like the studio albums, because it was perfectly acceptable early 70s music. You know what I mean? Fascinated with their story, think it's really interesting, have respect for Jerry Garcia and all that. But when the music starts playing, I just lose interest. And so that's my most recent attempt. Then I was reading an article. See, I keep going with this. I was reading an article with Lee Ranaldo, the aforementioned Lee Ranaldo from Sonic Youth, and he talked about the album Europe 72 being an album that made him a fan. Okay? I went on Apple Music, I downloaded the album. Nothing. Now, it's less tinny and noodly and samey than the 80s live tapes that I had heard growing up, and from all my old friends, there was a little more a little more fullness to the sound. It wasn't just that, tinny noodling, but I still couldn't get into it. Europe 72, still a bust for me, okay? I'm going to wrap up the video here. I don't really have anything more constructive to say on the subject. I have 4 more bands that I'm going to do for this series. But if you've got any similar things or a band that you have tried this many times to get into, but it still doesn't work for you, either make a comment about it or perhaps make your own video. I would love to see that too, because I feel like there's other people that have felt this phenomenon other than me. I don't know that for a fact, but I think so. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.